Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate prose. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics, in association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. All right, we're back. It's session 181 of Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, the official podcast of WFAT. We're coming from two different points of the world, two different provinces at this point today. Our guest today is Jacqueline Camley. She's been a certified athletic therapist since 2012 with a degree from Sheridan College in Ontario and an MSc in Kinesiology and Applied Physiology, specializing in athletic training from the University of Florida. Since 2015, she's been a senior lecturer in the athletic therapy program at Concordia University and continues to be active in both the field and clinical disciplines. In September 2025, she embarked on a new journey, starting her PhD in health and exercise science at Concordia University with a focus on cesarean section recovery and return to physical activity. Committed to creating an inclusive environment with her clients, students, and within her PhD work, Jacqueline's approach centers on understanding the interconnectedness of the body and environment. She believes that education lays the foundation for change. No better intro than that. Jacqueline, welcome aboard. Pleasure to have you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. My first podcast.
Yeah. Oh, first one. All right. Beautiful.
First one. Yeah.
first one. And it's our platform pushing education, right? Pushing education of what this profession is, where it plays, all these kinds of things. And no better expert of your story than you. So let's start back with the interest in athletic therapy. I think some of our listeners will be interested in Ontario to the University of Florida. We see the University of Florida through the TV screen in most times, football, basketball, sports of all kinds, but maybe not from the athletic training standpoint. So start with your general interest in athletic therapy. Walk us through, I guess, how you started and how you got to where you are now.
Perfect. So I actually started my Bachelor of Physical Education at Brock University. And my plan was to go in to be a high school teacher, biology, phys ed. One day, one of my roommates brought home a piece of paper that said, "Be a student kin." And I was like, she was going to apply herself. And she's like, "No, you should apply." And I was like, "Nah, it's okay." She convinced me to apply, and I started working with the women's hockey team at Brock University. I worked with them for 2 years as a student kin, doing taping, basic first aid things, working with one of the certifieds at Brock. And I was like, oh no, this is what I want to do. So then that's where I transitioned into going to Sheridan after that period of time and doing my bachelor's at Sheridan. Florida, I always kind of kept that teaching in the back of my brain a little bit, but now I had the new passion of athletic therapy, but with the teaching. And so part of the master's was I'm going to need a master's degree minimum in order to be able to teach at a university or a college or any of the accredited programs. So that's where I went down to the University of Florida, which we've had a kind of a handful of Canadian ATs that have gone down there and got my master's down there. It was interesting experience for sure, especially from the sporting world, coming from Canada and seeing high school versus university sports, and then going down to Division One and NCAA university. It was a big transition there, but it was really cool to see the differences between the two countries in that sense from a sporting world standpoint.
Yeah, no
Sure.
doubt. Resources, facilities, these types of things are sort of create a little bit of awe, I think, when we go,
Yeah, it's impressive for sure, for
yeah.
sure.
And how about that degree? I think just before we dive into all the amazing things that you're doing now, the degree from Sheridan, transitioning there, did you feel like you were ready for that? Did you feel like you had enough experience? It was comparable. I think that's important as well, sort of to navigate as somebody coming from Canada going to the US and into those sort of.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit different now, so I can't speak on how it is now because
Yeah.
they've transitioned to a master's degree as a minimum competency in the States for athletic training. But at the time, coming from my bachelor's, one, we were very well clinically versed in Canada, like Sheridan and all the institutions here, where we have a very big clinical focus and having our own patient loads, where that at the time wasn't the same in the States. They were more field oriented, whereas the physical therapist would take more of the major injury cases and work alongside the athletic trainers for that. Not to say we don't work alongside the other allied healthcare professionals as well, but in Canada, we played a bigger role in the clinic at that time. So I definitely felt very ready coming down. Our internships as well, or our stages, really prepared us. We got a lot of hands-on. When I was down in the States at the time, the students did a lot more observation based
Okay.
and less lead based kind of internships. And once again, that could be changed now, but that was just my experience when I was down there. So we definitely, I felt, had a step up or at least a good foundational knowledge to be able to go down and focus on athletic training at a master's level.
No, I love it. And sort of looking back through your bio, going back through your bio, education in a formal sense at Sheridan in Ontario, in Canada, to Florida and the US, obviously, for your master's, and now teaching in Quebec, which is for those listeners that are international, that's another province. So, I mean, for me, as I get older, it's like traveling, seeing different parts of the world, being immersed in different parts of or different cultures. All of that is like professional growth as much as it's personal growth as well. Is that a fair capture on your side?
Absolutely. You don't think there's much difference between necessarily Canada or the US, but when you go down there and you're in a southern state, and you've got people from all over the US there, you definitely see different cultures. You definitely meet different people with different opinions and viewpoints and political political viewpoints. And so it's very interesting because I think it's important to experience all of that.
Yeah.
Ontario and Quebec, there's even differences there. Obviously, a language plays a role as well. I'm coming as an Anglophone from Ontario, and I married a Francophone from Quebec. So there's definitely different cultural differences just between provinces as well. But you meet new people, and all those opportunities provide you with a better base on how can I deal with my clients? How do I see the world? How do I educate myself? So I think that pulls into my teaching, that pulls into myself as a clinician, as a human being. All those experiences of where I've been and the people that I've come across definitely help shape me.
No, great captures. And I think that's a part of like I can speak through my lens, you can speak through your lens or your perspective and your experiences. And mine was never like, I'm going to go to different places with my work. It was always like I was looking for that job or I was trying to do that thing. Whether it was a specific sport or a professional sport or a specific clinic or modeling myself after one person, whatever that was. And in the moment wasn't really aware of it. And then looking back, it was like all those little nuances of I got to go to different places, may not have been that immediately impactful, but in reflection and in sort of totality of the growth of the human and then the professional played a role on this side and sounds similar in your own through your own words and your own lens on that side.
Absolutely. I mean, just the fact that like if I didn't go to Brock, I wouldn't have necessarily, my roommate wouldn't have brought home that sheet of paper, and then that drove me to where I am today.
Right. No, awesome.
That, well, yeah, I thank her
Yeah,
every day.
yeah. No, this is good. Or maybe the opposite some days, but at least in getting you through the door, that was great.
Sure.
Good capture in terms of your launch and your interest and all the places that you've been. here you are now, you're lecturing students, so you're shaping the future, but you're also potentially shaping the future in some other ways through your PhD and the work that you're doing now. Let's just reframe the first question to be like, that's how you got to where you are now. How did you get to this topic of interest, to the research that you're doing, to the PhD? Give us that rundown, and then wherever we can take that from there.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, it's James Gardner here, host of Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast, the official podcast of the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy. We are excited to announce the next International Athletic Training and Therapy Day on February 12th, 2026. IATTD 26. This year's theme is Elevating Health Worldwide. We're calling on all athletic trainers, athletic therapists, and sport rehabilitators across the world to join us in celebrating our shared profession on a global scale. During IATTD 26, we'd love to hear from individuals, organizations, associations, societies, academic programs, and more about the impact of our colleagues in elevating health for their patients, clients, and communities. There are a number of ways you can participate via social media and in your communities. Share stories. Tell us a bit about a day in your life as an athletic therapist, athletic trainer, or sport rehabilitator. Give a shout out to an athletic trainer, athletic therapist, or sport rehabilitator who's positively impacted you as a professional or you as an athlete. Ask athletes and patients to share their thoughts on the value of ATs and sport rehabilitators in their lives. Create a fun video to highlight you in your setting or community. When you post to social media, be sure to use the hashtag IATTD26 and tag us.
Yeah, so for a long time, I was like, I'm never doing my PhD. No, I'm good. And obviously, as things change, society changes, landscapes at the university change. I knew that that was kind of where my next step needed to be. So I was open to the idea, but I was like, what do I do? How do I do this? And it kind of multiple things play a role in it. It wasn't just one thing. One of them was a couple years ago, I was working with one of my good friends who is doing, or at the time was doing their master's in rehabilitation following gender affirming top surgery.
Okay.
So I was helping them out with that project as a certified athletic therapist, going through the rehabilitation, doing a lot of the scar work, and working through kind of the first 12 weeks of the rehabilitation program. Because that's a population that the surgery is often funded, but then the aftercare afterwards, there's no funding for it or minimally funded, or there's no actual protocols for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I imagine like this is like, what other topics would you see that? Then I started, obviously, my friends and family were starting to have babies, and pretty high number of them were having cesarean sections. And so just me, curiosity as an AT, as someone who's big into the rehabilitation, it's like, okay, what are you doing for rehab? Are you doing any scar work? Are you doing breathing? Are you moving? And kind of the common theme overall that I was hearing is I wasn't given anything. I wasn't told to do anything. It was don't lift my baby for more than my baby for 6 weeks, and return back to activity when you feel your body's fully recovered or when your doctor says it's okay to. But then I had lots of people saying, well, my doctor just says, how do you feel? Or maybe they don't even get that question. And it's, well, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, it's 6 weeks, you can go back to activity. But then that was leaving people being like, well, I used to run marathons or I used to play hockey. And it's like, I couldn't do that right now. So there was a little bit of a gap, what I was seeing from hearing from my family, friends, some clients as well,
Right.
that they weren't getting anything. And I was like, isn't this a major abdominal surgery? This is like pretty significant, which we can talk about in a bit too.
Yeah.
But so I was like, okay, there's something going on here. And I was like, okay, I really would love to work with historically underrepresented populations, not only in research, but in society, being able to bring women first or put women first. And I'm just going to stop and preface by saying that I'm going to use the term women women, but I recognize that not everybody who has female reproductive organs identify as women, and that assigned female at birth would be a better term to use. But for the purpose of this, I am gonna say women and women's health.
Sure. Sure.
So yeah, I kind of was like, oh, there's a gap here. And then I was also seeing my clients who 20 years ago had a C-section and have low back pain or have hip issues or tore their ACL. And so I'm like, is there links? Like just as a clinician lens, like we know that fascial system is so interlinked with each other. That whole core area is so runs runs the rest of our body. So why aren't people getting surgery, or why after surgery are people not getting rehabilitation?
Yeah.
And so that was like, maybe this is what I need to focus on.
Yeah, and it seems like a simple question, but then it opens up all these other doors of just how many places we can go with that. And I love that as sort of a general interest. And then again, a gap analysis. And you said small gap. I think this is a glaringly obvious gap that just maybe it's so obvious that people didn't pay attention. I'm not sure. But you talk about the ACL, you talk about the back, we currently have a client that has a sports hernia repair being done, and there's a whole protocol for this, right? And nowhere in there is it like, hey, at 6 weeks, just if you feel good, just start doing stuff again. And nowhere in any of our probably active cases as field and or clinical professionals would we tell somebody coming off of any type of surgery, like whenever you feel good, start doing whatever it was that you were doing without some sort of progression, without some sort of protocol. And it's a gap and it needs analysis. And here you are. Keep going with it. Like,
Yeah, so
what's the target?
it's very interesting that you're saying is that like sports hernia. I've worked with a couple high-level athletes with sports hernia, and it's like, here's a protocol that you need to follow, right? You have a 12-week protocol, 6-week protocol, whatever the protocol may be. ACL. So I have a friend who from Brock that had ACL surgery and a cesarean. So she had cesarean, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and then tore her ACL this August. And so I asked for a little, just talking to her, just being like, comparison. What did you get for your cesarean section and what did you get for your ACL? Because not many people have the experience of maybe having both experiences. So what was your experience in the rehabilitation? And it was sad to see the differences, right? Obviously, from an ACL standpoint, it was pre-physio appointments, fall or before when she got to the hospital, they made sure that she could get in and out of the car, the shower, bed, showed her how to use crutches, made sure she had an ice machine, made sure she had compression wraps, and she had to bring those things to the hospital with her. Afterwards, a physio saw her, gave her the exercises, made sure she was able to do certain things, had already follow-up appointments and routine follow-up appointments booked with the surgeon over periods of time.
Yep.
Then for the rehabilitation was expected to see a physio 3 to 5 days later, or an AT 3 to 5 days later, to progress through. She even had an app. She had an app that the hospital was using to help guide her through her pain, guide her through some of the exercises and things like that. And then so that's what we typically see when we see musculoskeletal injuries. We see these, and that's, as allied healthcare professionals, I think that is our expectations. And then she had her cesarean, or previous, she had her cesarean, and she's like, nothing. Like I had to go, my husband had to go fill my medication, like, and leave me at home. Whereas ACL, they made sure you had the medication before and your pain management stuff before.
Right.
There was no guidance on like you should make an appointment with the physio, or like if you should wrap your abdominal region, if you need to cough, like how to get in and out of bed. There was nothing of that. And as an active individual for this person who plays soccer and then ended up tearing her ACL, there's a gap in this. And yes, I would say there's a glaring gap. At the beginning when I started, I was like, maybe it's a small gap. Maybe people are getting this. And then the more I did some research and looked at the literature, there's some really great literature on pelvic floor and some up and coming research in women's health, which is awesome. But there's still a lot of um, mentions of cesarean section. There's not much focus on. And interestingly, it is the most common inpatient surgery worldwide. And 1 in 3 births in Canada are by cesarean. So 33% of people have a cesarean section. And so we can't say that 33% of our population tears their ACL or
Yeah.
33% of our population has a sports hernia, right?
Yeah.
But yet they have protocols and they have expectations for the recovery, the musculoskeletal recovery of the athlete.
Yeah, not insignificant on any level. And so pushing this to the forefront of significance as amazing. And congratulations on diving into this on a PhD level and for everything you've achieved to this point in the field and fields. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I hear it and I'm like, I've worked with 0 cesarean section recoveries in my career, but I can't count on the number of, digits I have on my hands and toes, ACLs, surgical repairs in other areas of the body. And so I guess before we dive into what is a cesarean, what does it involve from a surgical procedure and or recovery, maybe we can go there as well. This just highlights like where we can play as athletic therapists, right? Whether that's adjunct to a surgeon or in cesarean recovery, like 33% of births, that's not like 10 surgeries a year. That's a huge number of surgeries being done a year with very little resources going towards it and or awareness that there needs to be resources potentially at this point. So this for me is a really big part of our podcast, of our profession, is like, oh, athletic therapists don't just have to run out on the field when somebody gets hurt, or they don't just have to work with athletes or runners or whatever. And so this is massive. And I think for me, as we talked in the preamble before we started the podcast, it's like, as I get older, I didn't know any of this when I was younger.
Yeah.
Our role now as sort of as we age in this profession, is like, let's highlight that this is a skill set that can do virtually anything with any recovery. And you've done a great job capturing this as an MSK recovery, rehab, surgery. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it goes to your point too, is the education component is I don't necessarily expect the gynecologists and obstetricians to focus on the rehab aspect, but I think it's important as a healthcare system to work all of us together, right? The allied healthcare professionals, of physios, ATs, massage, osteos, to name just a few, right? I'm missing some, but it's really important for us to work with the surgeons, work with the family doctors to be able to bridge that gap. And I get that it's not their job to guide the recovery, but they need to be able to point the female in the right direction to say, hey, this is where you need to go. This is why it's important. It's not my expertise, which is great. That's fine. But this is where you should go. And I think personally, I think historically the focus has been in the postpartum period on the baby, which is completely fair. I get that. An important element of this, but I think we need to bring awareness to the female as well. Is that there's somebody behind the scenes that is taking care of this baby, not even behind the scenes, front of the scenes, but taking care of this baby, is running families, is going back to work, is wanting to take care of her health as well, right? So,
Yeah.
well,
And it maybe even further to that, and I haven't done the research on it, but it just in my head just aligns with sort of this idea of other things that are aligned, mental health and tied to physical health and so on and so forth. Postpartum depression, all of the resources being pooled towards this new life that's just been brought into the world, and all of this care that goes into, are we feeding on time? Are we doing all this? And we're, again, it feels like we're losing also the person that gave birth to the baby, and in this case through a surgical measure, right? And so maybe there's a tie there as well, which I think is just like, as I listen to you, I'm just like, this makes way too much sense not to be doing care, because all of us need somebody to say, hey, are you okay? And not just good luck and see you in 6 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And there is some research that does support some of the consequences of a cesarean section from a musculoskeletal standpoint, as the adhesions that can be created from the scar tissue are associated with infertility, bowel obstructions, core weakness, pain, infertility, which can all affect mother-baby bonding, quality of life, which then kind of has that circle effect, right?
Yeah.
And another point to this is we're seeing more and more women in professional sports. Okay, so we've got PWHL, we've got the NSL, just here in Canada, I'm thinking we've got WNBA, we have lots of more high professional sports. So women are staying in sport longer, playing longer, and so they're at that childbearing age. So we're going to see more individuals that need to return not only to sport for their health or activity for their health, but to their job as well.
Right.
And so we need to kind of bridge the gap for both of those areas.
This is massive. This is exciting. And I think probably feels daunting at times too, but cool.
Ask me in a couple of years. I'm just starting. So
Just getting started and still really excited about it in the honeymoon phase until you dive in and then you're like, holy heck, what do I do next? Very cool. Things at Concordia as an instructor as well, obviously. So you're there teaching and you're also doing your own work and you're active. I love this. I think this is what makes our world in the athletic therapy space continue to tick. Being relevant in the field of research, amazing. Being relevant is as an educator for younger athletic therapists or aspiring athletic therapists, and then being active in the field where you're not losing those skills by not doing those and only focusing on one. My bias is always a little bit of everything makes for the greater good for everything. So very cool. Very cool. Where do you want to go with this next? I know you have a survey that you're giving out that we can highlight if you'd like. And obviously resources and links we can put into the notes at the end of the podcast. Don't want to take up too much of your time. It is a Friday afternoon, so I'm hoping you got a little bit of relaxation away from your research and from teaching for today. But
so I guess a little bit about my first project that I have out right now. So just preface by saying is I don't have any children myself, so I can't talk about this from a lived experience type of standpoint. So part of my first project was I wanted to listen. I wanted to gain information or explore people with lived experiences who've had a cesarean section or multiple cesarean sections and getting a little bit more information on the guidance they were given in their physical recovery from hospital to they're going back to kind of activity in sport.
Right.
So guidance on who did they get guidance from, what guidance did they receive, the challenges that they had in their recovery, and then the challenges that they had in returning to full activity in sport. And are those challenges, like where are those challenges? Are they physical challenges? Are they mental health challenges? Are they just new priority type of challenges? So multiple different things. So from here, taking that information to be able to say, this is what women want in their recovery. This is where the gaps are from their perspective, to then be able to help guide me in my future projects. Because I could sit over here as an AT and be like, they need this and they need that, and this is where we need to go. But I need to mesh my clinical experiences, the research, but also the lived experiences or our patient values. That's the whole purpose of evidence-based practice or medicine. So
amazing. And again, wheeling all of these pieces and not wheeling, but weaving them together and finding something meaningful so that you can create a project of meaning and value that will serve a much larger community and underserved population, as you mentioned early on, and highlighting this, I think has plenty of spinoff to have more projects and different projects and more support, we hope.
For sure.
On the road.
And part of that's going to be the education of the healthcare professionals as well. And don't get me wrong, there's some great ATs and physios and massage and osteos out there that are already doing some great work in the clinician side of it. And they're taking a lot of the research from other surgeries or other ideas in the musculoskeletal world, but there's not much on cesarean. There's a little bit, but not, we're not there and filling that gap yet. And one of the ones I just kind of want to, I guess, maybe give a little shout out to Jeanette Yee,
Yeah.
who is a certified athletic therapist and has a great online programs for cesarean recovery.
Yep.
I've been in conversations with her and just chit-chatting with her a bit and hopefully be able to do some collaboration. But like someone like her is doing some great work in making that difference before the research is there. Or the majority of the research is there. So just kind of kudos to the ATs and physios and osteos and massage therapists that are already out there trying to make those changes.
Yeah, and connecting community as well. And I think again, like I think that's where our not the transition, but sort of the transition. That's where our profession does a really great job of knowing no boundaries in the best way, right? Like we don't need ego, we don't need space, we don't need things as an AT. We need to be a part of a system of care and a system of best approach and best practice. And I think maybe a little bit more of a liaison than this is our territory, don't come over here. You know, we can play in all those different sandboxes.
I don't like that game, right?
Yeah.
I want everybody to be able to work together. And yes, people might not think of an athletic therapist as their first go-to for cesarean recovery. You're thinking, like even just in the preliminary results of the survey, it's like physio, massage. Those are probably the top two ones that people are thinking about, which is fair. But being able to bring light to, like you said, what athletic therapists can do and our expertise also in the return to activity and sport in this as well.
Yeah. Let's dive in a little bit on the surgery itself if
Yeah.
you're okay with that.
Yeah, of course, of course.
And then we'll cut it off there. We'll do another one. We'll do it longer. Maybe we'll get Jeanette. Maybe we'll do a whole thing. I think that's worthwhile down the road here. She has been on in the past too. So scroll through our listeners out there, scroll through our sessions. You can find some of Jeanette in our talk that we had a while back. But Jacqueline Camley is with us today. She is a certified athletic therapist in the Quebec province here in Canada. At Concordia University as lecturer and doing her PhD work, which seems to be groundbreaking. If not now, then definitely in the future here. Very cool. Cesarean section as a surgery. Listen, if you ask me what's the process for an ACL, I would have 2 or 3 questions right off the top of my head. You know, what type of graft? Auto, is it an autograft? Is it not? Is it a patellar tendon? Is it a hamstring tendon? What are we doing in terms of whatever, post-care, all these types of things that you highlighted a little bit. What's my first question with a cesarean? If I was going to say, what is a cesarean surgery? You would tell me what?
Obviously, the goal of a cesarean section is to deliver the baby. That's the main goal. There's different reasons on why individuals may have a cesarean section. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but typically women have emergency cesarean section, which is there's usually a immediate threat to either the mother or the baby's life that we need to go in and deliver the baby quickly, or there can also be planned cesarean sections as well. And so this is somebody who has it planned for a specific date. And there's different reasons why there could be planned. It could be medically planned or choice planned. And that's going to be up to the doctor and the female to determine that. When they go in, from a musculoskeletal standpoint, I'll kind of talk about it from that because that's where my focus is one, they cut through or separate 7 different layers of tissue. So we know in our body, we've got skin, we've got different layers of fat, we have fascia, we have muscles, and then there's the uterus. So you're going through multiple layers of important abdominal muscles, the rectus abdominis muscles. You're going through and getting down to the transversalis fascia and some really important muscle groups that help to stabilize our core and help to stabilize our lumbar spine, help with movement of our hips and things like that. So these are all potentially affected. And then they get through the uterus, deliver the baby, and then certain elements of that are stitched up and they're or stapled or stitched or however the procedure may go. And then that is it.
Yeah.
So
This is not like it's like this is not cutting through skin and a little adipose tissue to take out a part of my patellar tendon. and then sew that back together, drill a couple holes, put that back in, drill into some bone, and then we're done, with some screws. There's a lot more active livable tissue that has multiple roles in that portion of our body, right? Not to mention just like the space and holding organs and all of those different things. So this is not an insignificant surgery, as mentioned. Like I don't think if you quizzed a large percentage of people out there how many layers of tissue are being cut through with a cesarean section surgery, many would. I don't know how many people would get that right, but I think like this is
and a lot of people don't realize that there's multiple incisions, right? People just think it's the one incision, but there's one incision and then they go up a little bit and then they've got the uterus. They've got multiple incisions at different levels. So we see the one on the skin, but then there's also ones below that can play a role and are healing just like any other tissue, which can develop adhesions to that. They don't move great, which can have, from an AT or a physio standpoint, have implications in through the fascial systems, very close to organs, which can potentially create adhesions to some of the organs, which can then have potential consequences. Like I mentioned before, like infertility, bowel obstruction type of things, ectopic pregnancies, endometriosis, things like that.
Right. And so, I mean, again, I think we could probably just cut that last clip of what the surgery entails and then say, oh, there's got to be a protocol for that. Like everybody, there must be rehab in place for that, for everybody who goes through that, right? And there's still, there are people doing it. And there probably are a few protocols out there, but this is not the norm. This is not an ACL patient that has, meniscal involvement or no meniscal involvement. We have these two different ways you're going to go with that one. This is not, it's amazing that this is not and I don't mean that in a, oh, wow, that's great that we've ignored it, but not the opposite to that, right? This is great capture on that. And I think that should highlight for anybody out there is like, if I know my anatomy, if I understand my sort of core and central muscular system, fascial system, where things sit, what things purposes are in our body, this is a significant trauma to the body that should have a plan.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah. And I hope you're leading the charge on that. And I hope sort of our conversation today, not to make light of any of it, but our conversation today opens us up for more feedback to you, more connectivity to what you're doing, both at Concordia and with your own PhD. A short one relative to the topic, but I think a really important one. And I want to thank you for your time. Congratulate you again on doing this. This is not a small task. And I don't mean that as like, wow, like this is not a small task and really, really, really powerful work that you're doing, I think, potentially both now and into the future and for many, many people, and for our profession to highlight the fact that you're doing this and you're qualified as an athletic therapist. And this is what we're doing in Canada and Quebec. And as somebody with this as a designation, and again, not to put us up against any other profession, but just to showcase for any listener out there, the skill set travels. First of all, it can broach borders. We were at WFAT together as well, in Ireland, and and then professions as well, being able to collaborate and intersect with different places. So congratulations. She's Jacqueline Camley from Concordia currently. I'll let you wrap this up however you want to go. Your survey links, all of those things we'll put in our podcast notes when we publish here, for our listeners and for you. I hope it generates a little bit of feedback, a little bit of dialogue to our listeners. I hope it generates a little bit of a thinking process on, wow, I had an idea to think about this thing. I'm going to go after it. And you've done a great job with that. So thank you very much to our listeners out there. Keep listening, keep growing. This is what we do. We try to grow the community, try to grow understanding, use education as a foundation, as Jacqueline is doing. I'll throw it over to you to close it out. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, James. This is obviously new for me in this PhD in my journey, but the survey, I would really appreciate if you know somebody who is physically active, have had a cesarean in the last 5 years. The survey is both in French and English. If you could pass it along to them, share the potential Facebook and Instagram links that I have given James, and hopefully he can what would you do with them?
Yeah,
You can link them, or you can
we'll publish them in the notes afterwards. So
put them in the notes afterwards. That would be awesome, to be able to help promote women's health and really start and try to make this change.
Yeah, no, amazing captures for the brief amount of time that we had you. Go enjoy a little bit of time away from the research, a little bit of time away from the teaching, a little bit of time being a professional for this part. Put a different hat on for the weekend. Enjoy. To our listeners out there, thanks for listening. Reach out to Jacqueline, reach out to myself, reach out to Jacqueline, whatever it takes. We'll put all of that in the podcast notes. We'll put the survey up and the link to that if you need it. And if you can, pass that along to somebody you know, because this is going to impact many more people across the globe with this research, with the survey, helping Jacqueline, helping us, helping our profession, helping globally. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com. CONSULT@firststartherapy.com. On Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.